Hi, and welcome to Animation Deconstructed. My name is Shaul, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at layers and masks. I have a few files open here and I just want to show you what I've got. This is just a scene that I set up in Illustrator with quite a few layers, and we're going to be looking at all these kinds of options over here, how we can work with layers, how we can add effects, how we can move them around, and then also how we can create some masks. So the first option I want to show you is that we can hide anything that we want to, and this will affect our render. So we can put that on. The next is that we can solo a layer instead of hiding everything. We can just click this button, and what it will do is just concentrate on that layer that we're working with. We can also lock the layers, just like in Photoshop and Illustrator, so that you can't actually select or move them. And then we can also change the label color just so that we know where everything is. So if we knew that all this had to do with the ocean and the sky, we could change that to there. And if we knew that all our text needed to be something else, we could do that, and so on and so forth. Next thing that we can do is we can also change the name of our layers. So I'm just going to select here on the text, and if we hit the enter key, we can just, I'm going to leave that word text, go to the front and just say summer text, and hit the enter key. The next thing that we see over on this timeline is that we have this little guy that looks like he's peeking over a wall, and what we can do is we can just select a few of these, and what this does is it helps us just clean up our timeline if we're working on a very complex scene. So the way to work with this is the layers that we have selected, once we press this activation key, you'll see they disappear. But they don't necessarily disappear from our scene, they're just hidden from the timeline so that we can work on the other layers a bit more easily. It's going to turn them back on. The next one over is called the continually rasterize button. And the best way for me to show this is what I've done is this is created in Illustrator, so we do know that this is created in vector rather than raster. So if I had to drop the little raster object in here and scale it up, we know that it's going to rasterize at a bigger kind of scale. So even if we select this and go to full, and we really scale this up at 100%, this is what we're going to see. If we do that to one of our layers from Illustrator, yes, we will initially see the same problem, but once we switch this on, it will clean it up and it will continually look at that layer and the scale and calculate the vector output that needs to be done. Just take note that if you've got a very complex scene from Illustrator and you have all of these selected, your scene is going to slow down dramatically. So I'm just going to Control Z that. And the next option I want to look at is actually playing with the layer mode. So I have this Heavenly Lights video. I'm going to drop this, say, below the ocean, below the sun. I'm going to twirl this down, and we have our transform keys. This is on every layer, so I just want to rotate this. I'm going to come down to the rotation, and I'm going to say 180. Let's just click in there, 180. And I want the light and everything else, but I don't want the black. So just like in Photoshop, we have these layer modes, and if you're new to the Adobe Creative Suite, what these do is it will use different modes to blend it with the background. They're grouped into little boxes, so these are your darker colors, and if I had to select multiply, it will actually use the darker and try and add it to the background. We know this is heavily light, that's what it's named, so it's obviously going to be to work with lighting. I'm just going to select add, and straight away you can see that we're able to have this kind of glowing mix of colors with the background. There's plenty of options here. The best thing you can do is just to go through them all and see which one works best for your scene. The next option I want to show is how to create a box in your scene if you need a box. So what I want to do is just have a box around this text. So I'm going to select up here, and you need to be very careful. So if we have a layer selected, let's just choose something that's big, the mountain. That's selected, and we have our rectangle tool and we draw. Sorry, that's our mountain over there. You can see this is creating a mask instead of creating a solid layer. So I want to deselect everything. I press V just to select my pointer tool and deselect everything. Now I select the box tool and I can draw over here, and we have a new shape layer getting created. The shape layers have different options to them, and they appear at the top. So we have a fill, we have a stroke. You can see over here, if I click on the stroke area, that we can add one to this, and then it will automatically add a 2 pixel as a default and start it there. Before that we had nothing, and that is set when you click on the word stroke. You can select all different types of strokes. You can have solid, linear gradients, and radial gradient strokes. I'm going to go cancel there. I don't want a stroke, but I do want to set my fill to just plain white. I'm going to choose solid. We also have linear gradient and radial gradient, and I'm going to go OK. In order to change the color of this, you select the box over here, and this is where we can adjust this. Actually, I'm quite happy with that being just off-white. Or we can use our picker and we can come in here, just around there. And I want to move this off to the side. I'm also going to drop this down below our text. I'm going to position it around about there. What I want to do next is I would like to show you how I would knock the word summer out of this box. So this brings us to this little bar over here called track mat. And what it wants to do is it basically takes your layer and looks at any layer directly above it, and it will use the following options. So we can choose to create an alpha of the layer above, which is the opposite of what we want. We would like this box to be knocked out. Instead of using the shape above, we would like to invert that, so that's alpha inverted mat. I'm just going to select that, and you can see straight away we have that knocked out. We can still select the layer above and reposition it anywhere we want. Which brings me to the last little selection on the right here, which is called parent and link. So if I wanted to animate this shape layer in and out, right now our text does not follow. And that's what this drop down over here allows us to do. If I select that, we can see we can follow any layer we would like. And this little twirly thing here, this is called a pick whip. And what we can do, and it's much easier than the drop down, is we just click and hold, and we can point directly at the layer that we'd like that to follow. Now if I select my shape layer, we can move this and the text will follow it wherever it goes. One other layer that I haven't discussed yet that I'd like to go into is what a null object is, and just going to deselect so that this creates it right at the top of our layer list. New and null object. This is an invisible layer which we can parent anything to, and it won't render. It just helps us animate things in a much better way. So if we just had to parent this to that, we can now select this null and we can move it around. It's very important where you position this null right in the beginning, but we will do that in more advanced tutorials. I just wanted to give you the basics of what this was. When you render, you will basically see that scene as it is. The last thing in this video that I want to go over is how to create a mask and edit it. So I've got this composition over here, and I just have a solid orange layer. And what we can do with this selected is just go to the top here, and we have rectangle tools and star tools and polygon tools. I'm just going to choose the ellipse, and I just want to create a circle, so Control and Shift just to constrain proportions and scale it from the middle or the center. Once we've drawn that, you'll see in our layers panel we have this mask which is created, and we can just drop this down. You'll see there's 4 options. The other way to get to this, if everything's twirled up, is just to press your M button 3 times. So we can add a feather to this, and we can also play with the opacity and also expand or contract this mask. If we add a mask feather, you'll see that this will soften the edges. I'm just going to take this to 100. And basically what happens is it will do 50 pixels in and 50 pixels out and feather it that way. There is another tool, however, that we can use to create a feather. I'm just going to take that to 0, in which we can actually control where the feather takes place and also adjust that feather a lot more precisely. So at the top here, you would normally see your pen tool. I'm just going to click and hold down and choose the mask feather tool. And now if we just hover over the mask itself, so I'm just going to select that and hover over, you'll see this plus button, and this is what you're looking for. Anywhere else won't work. So once you see that plus button, we want to click down and hold and either drag outside or inside. And you'll see how this is different to the other feather options that we had before. We can actually control that the feather only happens within the circle boundaries. We can also, however, add an extra point to this and drag outside if we like. This isn't the end. We can add several points to this all over and control how large or small the feather is in different areas. And you can add as many as you need for your design. One more thing I want to show you is how to create some mask from text. So I'm just going to click in here and I'm going to say mask text. I'm going to make this a bit thicker, so extra bold. Scale it up. And what we can do is with this text layer selected, I'm just going to twirl it up for that. We can right click the layer, go to create, and create masks from text. Now this will automatically create a solid layer and some masks for all your text. And if we hit the M button once, we'll see all those masks. They're also named for us, so if you just want to animate this one, you can select it. Or if you just need a copy of that one, you can select it and copy and paste. I'm going to select all these masks and I'm going to say Control Copy, and I'm going to hide that layer, and we can just paste it onto this footage. Double click, move this down, And let's say something like that. Now we've got a mask for our footage. And you can move these, animate them in, or you can invert them if you like. Let's just press M over here and we can say subtract, and all of a sudden we have the opposite of the mask effect. The one thing I forgot to mention is how to create freeform masks. So if we just go to where that feather tool was again, we just go up to the pen tool. I have a solid layer here. I'm just going to select it, and we can actually draw on to this solid layer and come back here, and we can have any kind of shapes that we want. The options are the same. Hit the M key 3 times, and we can feather this and expand or contract anything else. How to make your objects move along different paths, how to make them ease in and ease out. So just different ways to control different movements on your timeline. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And till next time.